Today, I want to talk about something that doesn't just apply to programming. It actually applies to a lot of domains in life. Whatever activities you do, this is going to apply. And we're going to make it specific for programming, obviously. That's why you're listening or watching this. And what we're going to talk about is principles versus coding, or coding versus principles, I think I've titled this. So first of all, you know that when you're writing a program or you're making some kind of software, or even if you're just in the learning process, you might, type something like print and then open and close parentheses and then open and close quotes inside those parentheses, and you'll have a bit of text that you're going to print out somewhere. Now, I'm just using print as a kind of arbitrary statement, so you're printing out a line of text to wherever it needs to go. And what I'm going to show you here with this really simple, mundane example is that this is actually a great way of discovering that you're learning something implicitly. So first of all, to understand that, we need to understand that we're learning something explicitly, and that simply means it's obvious that we are learning how to print some text out to a console line, print something out. But what are we learning implicitly? Well, whenever you learn programming, I've found, and that's why I've started this podcast and broadcast and teaching other people how to program, is that no one tells you that what you're doing with print is actually executing a method or function. So by doing print, open and close your brackets, you're saying, go and find this function print and execute it with, and here's another principle, these arguments, which are the things we pass into the brackets, go and execute it with those arguments. And then the print method somewhere out there in the wilderness will do the code that it has stored inside of itself and execute everything it needs to do using that parameter or the argument that you passed it. So in this case, it's really simple. You are simply saying, take that text and go to the console line and print it out for me. Now, we're also learning actually another thing here, principle-wise, and that is abstraction. So when you say print something, we don't care what print means. We don't care what it does. We don't care how it does it. All we know as the developer is take this, go and print something. And abstraction is taking away those details from you, so you don't have to worry about it. Encapsulation is also kind of the same thing, but that's something we can get into another day. So code versus principles. Right, so I've kind of outlined the difference between coding and principles just with a simple statement. Now, what do you have to think about as the person who's learning to program? Well, whenever you write a line of code, so let's say, if I was going to use my Swift syntax, let x equal to 2 plus 3. Right, so the first thing we're going to look at is why we have a code. It's really simple what it does. X is going to equal 5, 2 plus 3. But let's look at the principles, and there are quite a few here. First of all, let x. What are we doing when we say let x or var x or something like that? Well, we're actually declaring a variable. So we're creating a little bit of memory space and saying, I'm going to put something inside of this variable, or at the very least, I just want you to have an empty box that you're going to allow me to store a variable in, let x. Then equals. What is equals? Well, it's the assignment operator. We're saying we're going to put something inside that box x that we are going to specify on the right-hand side. And on the right-hand side, we have 2 plus 3, which is basic arithmetic. But that's going off and finding a method out there, probably somewhere, on how to add two numbers, two integers in this case. So that is another principle. So as you're programming, what I want you to do as a task is break down each line of code that you're doing and just think about the principle, or just identify it. You don't have to think about it, just identify it. So let x, I'm declaring a variable, equals, I'm assigning something to that variable, 2 plus 3, I'm performing some function the answer to which, or the return value of which, is going to be stored inside of X because of that equal sign I'm assigning it. So coding versus principles is something I haven't seen really talked about out there. I know I've seen stuff like object-oriented programming principles, and that's something we'll get into. But I want you to do this exercise I've just shown you. Just take 1 or 2 lines of code and identify the really basic principles going on there. Because when you do that, everything else that you do in the future, whether it's learning or creating your own software, will become so much easier because you know the correct principles. Do you want to win prizes with your newfound knowledge? If yes, then simply head over to iamdev.net/episode 5 and take the free 2-minute test based on this episode. If you pass, then you'll earn dev points, which can be redeemed for real products on our website. So, to claim your points now, go to iamdev.net/episode 5.